So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Esther. I've had this up there for a while, so most of you have probably read it, but I'll just hit the highlights. As you can see, Esther Godson works at the Missoula Technology and Development Center, and she's got vast experience in fire, in all sorts of different environments and all sorts of different crews and units. Her overarching goal is to create an applicable project for fire management and bridge the information gaps not only between management and academia, but also in different phases of fire management. And her presentation today is part of that. So with that, I will hand it over to Esther and let her take over.
Thanks, Josh. Let me pull up my screen. Okay, hold on a minute. Woo. Can everyone see now? It looks like?
Yeah,
right.
that looks good.
All right. So thanks for the introduction, Josh, and I especially appreciate those poll questions. That's perfect for data junkies like myself. I want to thank everyone for attending. Actually, the attendance is quite remarkable given that it's a holiday week. I'm really impressed. I know most of you are probably definitely ready for a little vacation, so I appreciate the time that you're going to devote to listening in here. I have two goals for this presentation. One, I want to provide an overview of the Mobile Technologies program and the information for you to get involved and why that's important. Two, I want to promote feedback and discussion about this mobile technologies and fire outside of this webinar as well, and foster some thought onto why and how we're integrating it into our work processes. So just a quick definition of mobile technologies, because I'll be using that word throughout this presentation, is exactly that. Anything that's mobile. Dominantly we're talking about smart devices. As Josh said, sometimes they're not too smart, but ones that are enabled with internet connections, phones, tablets, satellite devices, the associated apps and processes and information related to them. That's what we're focusing on. After I present, like Josh alluded to, the second half of the webinar will open it up for writing questions. However, my contact information is posted throughout this presentation, this beginning slide and the final slide. So if you marinate on what you hear and think of something later in the week, please don't hesitate to contact me or post some discussion on the other venues we have available for you. So I want to start off with just to remark that over 70% of you from that poll, have your own personal smartphones. And that's pretty comparable to the other conferences I presented at. Generally, it's over 90%. Interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, most fire crews, the younger firefighters, all have smart devices, and it's our management positions that aren't up there yet. So point being, we're seeing these smart devices everywhere in the field. And I want to provide a foundation and example of how mobile technology is used and the real-time information from it is integrated into our management workflows. So here's a quick illustration, just a typical day in the life of a fire and aviation management employee with a smart device, we'll say a tablet, and I'm going to incorporate some of the projects we're working on currently. So you have your firefighter or your line operations. They're going to be completing a fire size up application, or maybe they're going to be inputting a different point, a sling site on a fire. Right now that stuff is done generally via emails and text messages to their duty officers, to their air attack, to whoever they're trying to communicate with, their dispatch. And we've actually worked on 2 applications to sort of funnel that all into a common platform. So while your firefighter or air tactical group supervisor is completing this, they're also looking at what you have here. Let me get out my pointer. In retardant avoidance areas on a fire, maybe they're planning where they can lay a line of retardant, what they need to be aware of. You can see right here that the aircraft's GPS location will plot it so the so they know exactly where they are in relation to protected areas. That information is constantly being funneled back up to our duty officers and our dispatch centers. They're receiving those ground updates constantly, and they can determine changes in strategy and decisions based on that. Also, the electronic documentation that it provides leaves more comprehensive records, extending into potential future area uses in management actions and even research. Perhaps you're going to be doing some prescribed burns for the northern Idaho ground squirrel, and now you're going to have a lot more data on previous burns in that area. Again, that information doesn't stop there, though, with mobile technology. You're going to be funneling it up to line officers and beyond. They're going to be able to see the real-time information that a duty officer and what dispatch updated when it reaches their screens. This screenshot right here is the Enterprise Geospatial Portal that we're helping with. And that basically funnels all intelligence information to that one view. So at the higher level, they can change their management decisions. They're adequately briefed so they can inform public briefings. And they're maintaining that constant information flow. So obviously, I don't have to belittle it or beat you with a dead horse, but the primary benefit of mobile technologies is really the ability to provide that real-time information. And if we have it on both ends of the spectrum, on the ground up to the top, then we have the ability to paint the picture better and our actions better. So, this isn't groundbreaking. Like we just said, over 70% of our people on this call have their own personal smart devices, and we're using them already to supplement our work. So what's the big deal? Well, if only it was that simple as developing applications everywhere and promoting the newest, coolest gadgets. One of the overarching goals of this program is to ensure we're not chasing every shiny object, not promoting independent silos, but developing a strategy for assessing emerging technologies while effectively using mobile technology across all agencies and stakeholders, targeting that other group that the poll showed we had. Otherwise, we wind up being inefficient and costly. We also want to make sure that the technology can be integrated correctly, eliminate redundancy of projects and applications, especially right now in a time of a budget crunch. Keep our eye out for technologies that would require too much of an intensive upkeep, and make sure that we have cross-agency work. So we really want to focus on technologies that we can incorporate into our system, and our system is going to be flexible for them so it can keep up with the quickly changing atmosphere out there while ensuring our corporate system security. You can see those caveats right there too. So that leads into this program. Really, we want to determine what's out there. It's changing fast, so it's hard to do. But a lot of times, the people on the ground are the first to know, and they'll find out what works for them. So we want to know what fits your requirements, what fits the land managers and the fire managers, and what works well for you. The interagency wildland fire community is already using these, and they're continually in need of enhanced mobile technologies to more efficiently and effectively perform. So the program has 3 goals. 1, to evaluate new technologies, workflows, and innovation in fire and aviation that meet user requirements at the national level. We don't want just one group doing something somewhere else. We want to make sure that it can be extrapolated everywhere. We'll recommend solutions based on those test results and evaluations to leadership and policymakers. And we want to coordinate the efforts in mobile technology for the user community's awareness. So present a collaboration platform to discuss ideas and solutions and training tips, lessons learned, and provide a conduit of information from the field to the leadership so our requirements are known. The members of the program right now are, you can see MTDC, who I work for. We coordinate with a Forest Service Chief Information Office, Wildland Fire Management Research Development and Application folks, and Fire and Aviation Management GIS and IT specialists, as well as we're expanding this year to include more DOI participation and NWCG representatives. But more importantly, we focus on fire and aviation management employees, subject matter experts in the different functional areas who can keep us grounded and make sure that what we're doing is applicable. So I want to highlight some of what we've been doing. So this project started actually last year. We coordinated with the Forest Service Chief Information Office on their iPad pilot. And again, I want to just reiterate, our program focuses on research and innovation. We're not dealing with policy making. We're not the governance creators with applications. We want to coordinate with these policymakers, with the leadership, and make recommendations regarding what we found on these studies. We've already provided a lot of the supporting documentation for policies that have come out for this year. So our testing determines what employee positions and requirements are, what devices are most usable in the fire environment, applications most needed, what workflows are in place, what affects the support structure already there, and how to integrate it better into our systems. The CIO iPad pilot provided a lot of great foundational information, and it also addressed a lot of areas that we'd missed. And what we missed was a lot of the functional areas and finding the differences in what people need in different areas in fire. So with this year's pilots, 2012, we were able to complete Region 1 team pilots, Region 5 and Region 6 incident management team pilots as well, and an operational test pilot. So the team pilots, we dispersed the iPads amongst the teams. They could use them however they wanted, and they could transfer, and we really looked at how they transfer that information. With the operational testers, again, we wanted to ensure we're hitting all functional areas of fire, so we focused on interagency hotshot crews, on an interagency heli-tac crew. We focused on district-level fire management officers and duty officers, a fire management module, smoke jumpers, air tactical group supervisors, and again, we wanted to note the differences in their specific needs, uses, and also to capitalize on a lot of the groundwork that they'd already been doing in mobile technology. So the iPad pilots really provided an overview of the requirements of what we need in our fire management strategies. And I'll get into that in the next slide. Next, I have this Viasat satellite system, and it's a portable, small military-grade satellite system which provides high-speed internet access, sometimes 5 times what we're getting with our typical satellite providers on those remote ICPs. We tested it in Region 1 this summer on a variety of Type 1 and Type 2 spike camp situations. The cost is remarkably less than other satellite carriers as well, so it was really a success and something that we hope to continue testing to see the best use of it in fire. The satellite emergency notification devices. That's a big phrase, but we call them SEND devices, and this was a test that was established outside of fire, actually, and so it was a cool technology where we saw some potential crossover in fire, and we wanted to see if there was a use case with them. These were specifically the DeLorme inReaches, which are similar to the Spot Messenger, but they offer two-way communication as well as map tracking and texting and email ability, and unlimited map tracking, which is a definite benefit. So we tested them with a hotshot crew, a rappel crew, wildfire module again, and a district crew. The final results are still pending, but tentatively there were specific areas of need. The fire management module really liked the idea in remote areas, especially when radio traffic was bogged down by other fires. It made it easy to send a quick update just as an ops normal, and the ability to have unlimited map tracking was also an asset. Mobile applications. Montana DNRC has an employee, GIS specialist, Mark Slayton, who developed an INSEE mapper application, and we did that beta testing in tandem with the Region 1 iPad pilot. It's similar to Avenza PDF Maps. Basically, it's built for an iPad, and it focuses on the real-time updating of our daily operational IAP map. So line personnel can take their iPad and that application, go out to the line, put in the dot where they finish the hand line. That'll send it directly up to a cloud. The GIS specialist or situation unit leader specialist will look at that, do some quality control, update the app, and then anyone else on that fire sees now the updated information. So instead of that crumpled IAP map that we normally carry around in our pocket, we have a real-time updated map of fire activity and operations. So definitely a lot of benefits and potential with that, and we'll be pursuing that in the future as well. The fire size-up application, we're partnering with the USDA mobile developers on. A lot of the iPad pilots presented a need for mobile forms, and a common platform to share that information. So we wanted to start with something simple and foundational, and then we could move from there, and that's why we chose the Fire Size Up application. It filled an area needed by providing one platform for fire information, photos, map tracks, videos, etc., that currently has been sort of hodgepodge together via emails and text messages to dispatch centers and duty officers. So ideally, this app will be integrated into our other programs like Wildcat and WFDS, and will reduce transcription errors and provide more of a seamless transfer of information. Right now, we're currently testing the application to see if it'll meet the established work processes there during an initial attack fire. We're also contributing to work with the retardant tracking application, AVU application, as well as the Enterprise Geospatial Portal. Both of these will be available next summer. The retardant tracking is really simple. It's a form-based application, and the Enterprise Geospatial Portal is basically all the intelligence information I alluded to before with that screen capture. All the intelligence information you look up every morning when you're going out on a fire or before you go out for a fire assignment or waiting for one, all in one place with a spatial background viewer. So those are just the project highlights of what we're working on. And what we've discovered with these projects, well, first, here are a couple of photos of our testers out there, and some of you guys may recognize some of these people. The two devices in the middle of the page are the Viasat. You can see how portable it is just in comparison with the safety cones. And then the DeLorme in Reach, which is really just the size, if not smaller, than your smartphone. Before I forget, you guys may have noticed the picture on the announcement of this webinar, and that was the Nature Conservancy's Jeremy Bailey with an individual from Patagonia, Dante, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but it was during their technical prescribed fire training that was hosted on the Santa Fe National Forest this year, and one of our test groups attended, and they utilized the iPad quite heavily. So just wanted to provide a reference for that photo as well. So they're out there. Everyone's seen people using iPads, and you've probably been using your own or your own smart device. So here are the functional area requirements that we determined from these pilot projects. We have aviation operations, ground operations, and management operations is basically how I split it down. And I'm not going to read through them, but you can see the reoccurring themes, and we use these themes to develop our future work in areas and requirement and needs areas to work off of. Most of them are either hardware-wise, tablet and data plans, but also access and use. Just to pinpoint a lot of them, connectivity, that was one of the limitations that you guys addressed on your poll question, and that's addressed in the offline mapping that almost every general resource area and even management presented as a need. Information sharing platform was huge for all of them. A lot of times this has been done with different applications, such as Dropbox or a shared Gmail account. And so these are some common applications. This is just giving you a foot in the door of what some people are using. These are somewhat skewed towards Apple. The department and agency went with Apple first, and so a lot of our test results are only Apple devices. But I did note if they were available on Android or iOS, and in the future we're moving towards more agnostic devices, and so we are keeping track of different applications on the different operating systems as well. So you can see some of them, and this list isn't by any means comprehensive. There's definitely more out there. What we did find that I thought was interesting is that there's a 50-50 split between specific application use. So a specific Avenza PDF maps or Notability or any one of those, and mobile web browsing. And generally, incident management teams, management officials, people with access to a laptop or a desktop right away utilize the iPad more for the specific applications. And people who are in travel status, operational, they definitely used it more for mobile web browsing, real-time weather alerts, checking out GAC websites to keep up to date on what was happening resource-wise. So something to note. Also, this will be recorded and available later if you're having a hard time catching up and scribbling down applications or anything. So like I said, when we picked those common themes and feedback, we delineated some focus areas where we want to work on future projects. Of course, we're going to finalize the projects currently underway and potentially build off their framework more. That would be the fire size up application, the Montana DNRC INSEE Mapper application, and we want to assess those results and see if we can actually put them in the national system. This list will continue to morph as we get more field feedback, but these are the broad project areas we're working on for this coming year. That file sharing platform is huge. Having a central location where people can find information, put information all mobily instead of hodgepodging it together. Designing and developing some best practices for offline map use, file sharing on incidents. So even if you're using a different mobile application, when you go to an incident, that GIS person or the team itself will know how to cater to that mapping app or information you require. We're going to look into mini tablets and Android operating systems. The mini tablets are definitely the new rage. I don't know if you heard or have been eagerly waiting in line to get your mini iPad, but they do fit a lot of the hardware requirements that our fire and aviation management employees are looking for, that being a screen large enough for map viewing but small enough we can put it in our pocket. It also really eliminates a lot of noise in the cockpit by being small enough to put on your kneeboard for aviation folks. We're also looking at a different VSAT package. This package isn't quite as portable, still definitely doable, but not limited to the 75 pounds as the other one, but it's much cheaper and can provide the same benefits. Probably most importantly, I think, is continuing to host and further developing a mobile technology collaboration platform. So right now we have the MyFire Community Lessons Learned website, and hopefully some of you guys have been there. If you haven't, it's myfirecommunity.net, and you can search for mobile technologies. There's discussion forums there, and we really want to keep encouraging that for information sharing to reduce project duplication. If someone's working on something somewhere else, maybe you can read about it and be like, oh, I'd like to help out with that, or, you know, prevent some duplication there. And also a common source for finding relevant application, relevant uses of mobile technologies in fire. So it basically takes advantage of incredible amounts of innovation and smarts in the field and establishes a doorway for operations and field users to collaborate and send their ideas and work to research and development, us, which makes sure that our work is applicable to them, and then that likewise creates the doorway to leadership and policy issues and changes. So really leveraging a lot of work to create better mobile strategies and technologies and increase our effectiveness there. So how do I want you to participate? A lot of you probably already have. I'm sure that there's a handful of you that I've talked to in the audience and pestered with ideas or emails. But really, we need innovation from the field. We need our work to be applicable, and the field and the stakeholders we work for and our agency frameworks. We can't chase every shiny object. So in order to do this correctly, efficiently, and actually make a difference, we want your insight. What works? What's needed? What's used or been developed? Is it going to cost so much that even though it's cool, there's no way that you're ever going to deal with it? So if we can talk together and establish that doorway for discussions and ideas to identify problems and solutions together, we'll go further and prepare better products and workflows. So propose some future projects. Some of the conferences that I've attended and presented at this summer and fall, one idea or one concept was, you know, they would totally give away their laptop in a heartbeat for iPads if there was a mobile interface for programming radios. And that was a really good one, and we're going to look at it and see if we can promote it at a national level and if there's some benefits to it, if we can do something. So that's just an idea to hopefully spark some creative genius out there. We're definitely looking for any needs. And you can find the best way to provide those is on our MyFire community website. Again, there's a proposal document. And obviously, we're always looking for people who are willing to test projects for us. And we want to make sure that we hit the different areas in fire, the different user communities, and the different parts of our processes out there. So we want to make sure that all these studies are tying everything in. So in summary, my goals of this presentation were to provide you with an overview of the program and how you could be involved, and also to promote and foster some discussion and some thought onto how we're using mobile technologies in our strategies right now and where we can do better. So really, I think that's it. I'm going to close out, but I want to reiterate, we want to do it right the first time. So we're proactively thinking ahead. We want to make sure that the technologies we're promoting are scalable, they're transferable across agency lines, they're flexible as technologies emerge, that we're encouraging that innovation from the field and we're transferring that information to and from the field to research, to leaders, to policymakers, and ultimately providing that doorway for what needs to be researched, what the requirements are out there, and try it with national level testing, and then provide recommendations based off of that.
All right.
This is a very large topic, and oh, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, this is just a very large topic, and I tried to provide some sideboards to keep it on track for the time frame we had and just the primary focus of this program. Right here you'll have a BIDL and a QR code that is another opportunity to provide input if you have time. Definitely is appreciated if you'd like to fill it out. Also listed is the MyFire community website and our contact information. To preemptively answer some questions I know I'll get, on procuring mobile devices such as iPads and iPhones specific to the Forest Service. The Forest Service Chief Information Office will be releasing a letter outlining the process this December. So yes, they will be available. Cross-agency-wise, the DOI and Forest Service are both working on implementing similar mobile strategies, and at the Fire and Aviation Management level, DOI and Forest Service are coordinating together as well. So with that preemptive answer, thanks for your time. I know that was probably like unleashing the fire hose, but I definitely look forward to answering some questions and hearing from any of you. Josh.
Okay. Thanks, Esther. That was really interesting. That's good. I'll go ahead and jump right into questions because the list is already starting to fill up. The first question comes from Stephen Wetmore, and he wants to know if will NICC be producing products such as georeference maps in a publicly available location?
That's a really good question. And Nick, that's one of our project plans, was having a standard operating procedure for georeference maps so that IMTs and Nick, who hosts the FTP site, can provide that for everyone since all of our mobile devices rely on that. So that's in the works. Good question.
Okay. Julia Rutherford wants to know whether the cost for a Viasat satellite system ballpark estimate is just fine.
I know Julia Rutherford, I think, if you're an IMET. The cost is, well, for the Viasat that we tested this year, it was free of charge, donated by the Viasat to see if we actually had a use case for it. And the new one will be much cheaper. This one was just under $25,000. But the average speed was 10 to 12 megabytes versus what we're typically seeing on a fire with other satellite providers of like maybe 2 a day. And they're charging, and typical providers have charged $1,500 a day, whereas Viasat has different packages. Their monthly package is $650 for 50 gigs. So just an idea of the deal that they're offering.
Okay, it's cheaper than I thought.
Yeah.
Alyssa Stewart wants to know would the mobile fire size up? Would the mobile fire size up into Wolfdus Wildcat be compatible with Irwin?
Ooh, good question, and we're working with Irwin to make sure it is. That for those of you who don't know, Irwin basically is a program it's really trying to integrate a lot of these 94 different applications we have out there. And so yes, we're working with the team of Irwin for that.
Okay. Beth Brady has a comment. You're missing a functional area, but we are used to being overlooked. I'll be doing a white paper on the multiple ways fire prevention personnel are already using smartphones on our own and apps to do our jobs more efficiently, and the potential future uses in terms of investigations, inspections, LE, and fire incident reporting.
Sorry for not pointing you out, Beth. LE, law enforcement, we do include a lot of, and public information officers on incident management teams have been using a lot of iPad uses, and so there is some crossovers there, but when you do complete that white paper, I would love to take a gander at it if you wouldn't mind passing it on.
Okay. And Beth, you could send that to Advances in Fire Practice as well, and we could post it as well, too. Okay, next question is from Lee Bullock. Has there been an issue with device battery life when being used by hand crews in remote locations where the device is in and out of service, and how to charge a device when you're not near a power source?
There really hasn't, you know, point blank, that's what you would think you would discover, and there really hasn't been an issue with battery life, because there's ways you can charge around it. A lot of crews are using a clamshell option where they're charging off of that, and so we haven't had a problem with that. We have had a problem with people who haven't used a data plan, a cellular data plan through Verizon, and have been using their MiFi. The battery on the MiFi will drain quicker than the battery on your iPad or other devices. But as far as the tablet devices, there hasn't been too much of an issue there.
What is the clamshell device that you mentioned? What is that? Is that like a solar charger?
Nope, it just operates right off of your radio clamshell.
Oh,
or
okay.
you can, a lot of, yeah.
Okay.
With an adapter.
All right, so next question is from Rita Duncan. I'm a forest FMO and not allowed by my force to have a smartphone. We are barely allowed to text. Have you thought about those of us who are behind the curve with technology through no fault of our own and what your group can do to help us? It's really frustrating.
I completely empathize with you, and a lot of what we're getting and a lot of what we're promoting, the feedback we get from you guys, I crunch together, synthesize, and we provide that feedback to our leadership and our policymakers and show just what the need is. So we're trying to address that. There's a lot of hoops to go through, but rest assured, you aren't beating your head against the brick wall for too much longer, and that's one of the goals of this program, is really just to make sure that technology is reaching a lot of different areas and we're not missing anyone there.
Okay, and Reva has another comment, just that please don't forget about us in the East. We'd love to help pilot some of these technologies as well.
Yes, Rita, thank you.
All right, and Wesley Keller has a comment. He says, on the county level, we are using a file sharing platform for our incidents from SSI Knowledge Center Incorporated. Maybe worth looking at. Let's see, Steve Lemon has a question. Has there been any development into a public accessible fire reporting app? It would be great if the public could give a photo and coordinates in a basic fillable form to report wildfires.
I don't know if you, that's actually a really good idea, and it's something that is on the periphery of that fire size up application that we're working on right now. Right now, our focus is just to make sure that that application works for us, for fire personnel, and if it does, then we could think about promoting it to the public side. But that's been an idea that's been brought up in our meetings, so very spot on.
Okay. Rick Nunez wants to know if there are any tools to help with managing aircraft on large, complex fires, and any tools to help air tanker bases?
Well, managing aircraft on large, complex fires, there is the mobile AFS platform, which will be coming out. In terms of, and that would at least help on those levels. And then with ForeFlight and some other mobile apps, you'll be able to see TFRs and real-time radar. Now with use on a tanker base, that I think, from my experience, would really benefit from a lot of the mobile forms and having a standard there, so you could have someone at the pits filling retardant, and you could be getting those directly back. There's a lot of, I think, need for mobile apps, mobile form apps that we could provide for tanker-based uses.
Okay. Karen Folger wants to know, what about a mobile WFDS web map app?
That's somewhat what WFDS Lite is. It's HTML5, and we do have those team members on our group. It's not something that we're pursuing right now, but they have been pursuing that a little bit on their own. So if you want to email me about more information, I can point you in the right direction to contact you with some people.
Okay. Joe Ashby asks, it's a question, and it says iSuite. I'm not sure.
Integrating into iSuite, that's also, that would be really neat. That would be really awesome. That would help out incident management teams immensely. And it's on the horizon. I think that there's some definite intricacies there and hurdles, but we are aware of it.
Okay. Ted Mead wants to know, given that the wild and fire business is accomplished in an integrated interagency environment, how do we further this discussion and testing to include all partners?
Can you repeat that again?
Given that wild and fire business is accomplished in an integrated interagency environment, how do we further this discussion and testing to include all partners?
Oh, right on. So last spring, some of you guys may have already attended the conference or webinar, but I presented a webinar to the Fire Learning Network, the Nature Conservancy as well, just to make sure it was reaching out there. And part of our goals with providing these webinars and doing these conferences is really to promote that outreach. We'll be presenting at the Portland Association for Fire Ecology Congress in December, as well as one in North Carolina too. So that is an effort we're trying to do right now, just to make sure that we're reaching the entire stakeholder audience.
Okay. David Gimnich wants to know what applications are currently available for download to test in our workplace or community. So I get, maybe just expand that to, what sort of things could people be doing now on their own, with the existing systems they have.
Well, right now you can do anything you want. If you have your personal smartphone or even a government one or tablet, we don't have app governance. We're trusting that you're using applications to increase your efficiency in your job and make it better. The list of applications I provided earlier, that's just the starting point of what we've been using on fire. As we start developing more applications specific to the agencies, that would be an area where maybe if you write into us and you want to test, that's something that we would definitely look into.
Okay. Joe Ashby has another question, and it's who assumes liability for personal devices used for official business?
Boy, that sounds like a CIO question. Again, that's something that has come up in our conversations, but we're focused on the research, and policy is really on the periphery. That's something that they're dealing with right now when they're putting together the documents and the processes that will go into mobile technology, so I can't really speak to that.
Okay. Keith Mitchell wants to know about work that's been done in Alaska and remote areas in terms of connectivity.
Here's an interesting thing. First, we've done a lot of work in Alaska with, with the Sun devices. We had law enforcement officials up there using them. In terms of connectivity, it hasn't been as big of an issue as we would think. Most of the time, it appears, even if you're in the middle of nowhere, it's not too much of a hike. A lot of our shot crews mention this, to get cell service. And then when the bigger issue is really connectivity or internet systems getting bogged down with users in incident management situations and ICPs. But in terms of connectivity in the field, it hasn't been as big of an issue as I thought. And a lot of the applications that people are using also can be cached and used offline. We don't have any iPad testers specifically in Alaska, but the BLM has been using iPads with a lot of their smoke jumping operations as well as their air tactical group supervisors. And I haven't heard of any big issues or unexpected difficulties with connectivity.
Okay. William Green wants to know if you can legally use 3G and 4G devices in an aircraft, and maybe just expand on that and just talk about any sort of issues with using 3G and 4G networks in our aircraft.
Okay, I'm not talking about American Airlines plane that you're going to take home for Christmas or something, but you can use 3G and 4G in our fixed-wing platforms and our helicopters. The FAA has approved iPads for flight e-bags, and that's actually front-loaded a lot of this discussion and a lot of our aviation use of iPads because they have the ability to replace a lot of the manuals and documents that typically pilots have to carry around. In terms of, I think maybe I'm inferring from your question that you're curious about if they interfere with some of the systems maybe that those aircraft use, and that's beyond, I have no idea on that. I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm assuming that if our agency personnel who have been testing and using iPads haven't had a problem with that, then we're okay there.
Okay. You've partially addressed this, but we'll go ahead and ask it again. But my name is Pollo Madrid. I'm from Spain, and I think probably the biggest problem today is connectivity or coverage in the work areas. So, how maybe just address that of how is the connectivity problem disappearing, or is it being reduced every year as coverage expands, or is it something that's always going to be a problem?
Well, you sort of answered that, Josh. It's definitely being reduced every year. No, that's good. I'll take the help. It's definitely being reduced every year. And then with what we tested, the Viasat satellite system, that was sort of a way to address the connectivity issue. So a portable system that provides high-speed internet access in the middle of nowhere. I think that gradually those areas where we don't have connectivity are going to decrease, and with the Viasat, if we can provide connectivity with satellite systems such as that, then our only kicker is making sure that this happened quite a bit, is that we overloaded the system and with too many users, too many people trying to use the internet. And so that's more of the issue now, and how we're going to work around that to make sure it doesn't crash with usage. But I think connectivity is a decreasing issue with just expanding cell towers, increasing amount of offline applications, and then our ability to use satellite systems for internet.
Okay. And this sort of skipping down the list here, but this is sort of related. This is a question from Alex Victoria, and that's a question from NAFRI. What's the latest with incident Wi-Fi networking?
Incident Wi-Fi networking?
Yeah.
So incident management, I'm guessing that Alex is inferring or asking about incidents providing wireless access.
Right.
And I will say that, again, it comes back to what I just mentioned with systems crashing before, but Wi-Fi access is being provided to a lot of teams, password protected, and then if there's the bandwidth and the capability, they generally do have an open line to the public. Again, on some fires, we were having issues with those systems crashing when too many people were trying to pull into it. Basically, we have a lot of, we'll call them millennials, people walking around looking for cell service on their phones, not looking at where they're walking, but holding their phones up to get internet access. And again, and that's a project area or an issue that we need to resolve. But teams are using Wi-Fi, usually password protected for teams, and then if available, they have it open for the public.
Okay. David Gimnich wants to know if it's possible to get a list of the 94 applications you referred to.
Yes, I can probably get that to you. If you email me, I'll get it to you.
Right, and there's been a couple questions about getting a copy of the presentation, and I would say if you want a copy of the PowerPoint to contact Esther directly, but we're making a recording of this webinar, which is a movie file, a Windows Media file that we'll have available on YouTube a little shortly after the webinar is over. Okay.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll save it and post it to the MyFire community website as well for people.
Okay. and this has sort of been covered, but I guess we'll ask it again. Dave Whitmer, have satellite radio communications been considered in satellite connectivity, and has the Viasat system been tested in Alaska?
The Viasat system hasn't been tested in Alaska. It has been tested in the Selway Bitterroot, but we haven't tested it in Alaska yet. We have tested a lot of the satellite emergency notification devices in Alaska. But I guess what I'm saying is you may be bringing up a good point, and Alaska is a niche area that we need to have more test groups from.
Okay. Beth Brady, Barb Satik-Wolfson of the Southwest Fire Science Consortium says that they would like to see a copy of the white paper you're putting together for posting on their website as well. So you got lots of outlets for the work you're putting together there. Okay. This next question is from Aaron Green. What would the training look like for these applications and devices, and how do we maintain data standards with so many different devices? It's hard enough to try to teach GPS classes with 20 different Garmin devices.
Awesome question, and that's something that we've been toying with all the time, and that's really why we're promoting that collaboration platform. The community has to help themselves. Technology is changing so fast that it would be asinine to try to present different courses for different types of applications out there, different devices. But what we can do is provide that forum where people can post, hey, I use this application, this worked for me, this is a tutorial I summed up, and sort of rely on each other to help us out with that. It's such a dynamic environment that it's definitely difficult to keep up with. And I think if you do go to the MyFire community website right now, we are beginning to compile a lot of tutorials for different applications that people are using in fire. And as that site gets better, hopefully it'll expand. And we are working also towards a community application-rated warehouse, so an area where people can go, they can see what application works best for what functional area in fire. People can recommend it, say, it didn't work, it worked, this is where it worked, such and such. So a lot more community involvement is going to help us stay on top of stuff like that in training.
Okay. Next question is from David Gimnich. What, if anything, is being done to integrate any mobile mapping applications with the current Esri mobile application?
Ooh, there's a lot actually that's being done because, well, as you know, most of our systems are all using Esri. The kicker is that ArcGIS, there's a lot of kickers, and I don't want to get into some mud here, but Region 5, Lori Peltz-Lewis has really been working a lot with this, as well as our geospatial working group, and that's why we've incorporated them into our team, and obviously the need for mapping and mobile mapping is really huge. So it's an area where we want to really work into and make sure that the applications we're using right now tie into our GIS, ArcGIS, Esri stuff as well.
Okay. This is another comment from Rick Nunez. In the past, I've worked with GIS folks to make pilot maps, especially made for pilots, but it is difficult to find GIS folks that understand what is needed. Is that something that's changing as everybody's starting to get on board with these mobile devices, or starting to see integration across some of these functional areas with GIS?
I think there's definitely integration across functional areas, and I think it's a growing movement. In terms of providing pilot-specific maps, that goes along with the standards, the best practices that we want to develop for certain areas and functions like that. So we have similar regions presenting the same information and moving on from there. And that, again, takes a lot of coordination with our geospatial folks, which we're doing.
Right. Okay. You mentioned earlier some of the potential problems with situational awareness with everybody walking around, staring at mobile devices. Jim Thomason has a question along those lines. It says, with everyone busy on the fire, do they have time to use the devices, or is it seen as an annoyance?
That's a good question. You know, I had the opportunity to serve on the NASA Wildland Fire panel as a peer reviewer this summer, and that was one of the comments brought up. Well, geez, if you're actually on the fire line, are you really going to be looking at I forget what it was, but I think for the most part, how we've been seeing these devices used is in really like spurts of time information. So it's not like someone's walking with their head down just looking at their iPad or their iPhone. They're doing their job, and then when they get to those trigger points or to those sections, they're stopping and providing that information. So it's not really, I would say right now, our users are very aware that this technology is only supplementing their actions. It's not detracting from it and their attention.
Okay. Next question from Travis Alexander. Has the Intera interface been integrated into the tablet environment?
The Intera interface is the Enterprise Geospatial Portal, and that will be mobile, and that will be coming this coming summer, and so it will be available in a tablet environment.
Okay. Another question from Alex Victoria and Nafri. Are there efforts underway to promote the use of smart devices in the training realm?
Yeah, NWCG is really latched on to mobile, and with this coming charter, they're part of our committee, and they're definitely pushing that as well. In terms of training, I mean, that's maybe more with the publications, and I think they are doing that with training as well.
Okay. I just want to stop for a second and point out that I believe that this webinar has set the record for the most registrants for any webinar that we've done in this webinar series, and then I think also that you set the record for answering the most questions in any Q&A answering session. But you don't seem to be wearing down, so we'll ask a couple more before we let you go. Okay.
All right.
The next question is from Mark Giacoletto, and is, will there be additional opportunities for IMTs to test the use of iPads? If so, what is the process to test the devices? So if there's anybody out there that would like to get involved in this, what should they do?
Certainly. That's great. Again, that MyFire community website, or emailing me directly and saying that you're interested or where you see the need of them in your positions. I can't guarantee that we'll have a project where you can test, but I would love to be able to have a test bed that we can draw from, and interested, motivated individuals who are willing to do so. So email me, or if you go to the MyFire community site, myfirecommunity.net, and then search for mobile technologies, post on there or send me a direct email. That'd be great.
Okay. Next question from Porfirio Chavarria. Hopefully I didn't screw that up. Sorry. What role do you see Twitter? What role do you see for Twitter informing firefighters and the public?
Good question. And if I can make a shameless plug, BAM Mobile Tech is our Twitter name, and we do provide tweets every once in a while of relevant information. I think if I can make a big systematic picture, mobile technologies really just is constant information, and it creates more of that communication. It informs our communication better, and Twitter is a communication service that does the same. And from what I've saw this year in fire, the amount of Twitter feeds that are utilized providing that real-time information, it's almost like crowdsourcing information, is really tremendous. And I think there's a lot of potential, and I believe that most fire communities and fire organizations have latched onto that as well.
Okay. Alyssa Stewart wants to know if we can expect to see mobile. When do we can expect the mobile AFF platform?
You know, I don't know the date on that. If you send me an email, I can get back with you on that one.
Okay. Rob Stebbing wants to know how has training in the use of apps kept up with the technological advances in mobile technologies?
Training in the use of apps. I think we sort of maybe touched on that before, kept up, and we cannot train fast enough for how fast applications are changing daily and what applications we're using in the field. And that's why we're really relying on the user community to provide that training, to talk together. We can't have one entity just writing up tips and tricks and tutorials constantly with how fast things are changing. Conveniently, there are some applications, and by promoting the applications that really work with the system and are lasting, we do limit some of the periphery, shiny objects of applications. So that does decrease the amount of training needed for certain applications or device use.
Okay. So think we're reaching the top of the hour here, and there's still quite a few questions left. So this is obviously a topic that people has generated quite a bit of interest. And for one thing, just the level of interest in registering for the webinar. A few people have asked how many people are here. Over 400 people registered. It's hard after the webinars. It's hard to tell how many people actually came in and left, and sort of came and gone. But I imagine it was probably about 300 people attended. So this has generated quite a bit of interest. There's still some questions left. Maybe if at this point, if you can send Esther an email query, and then you guys can get a conversation started, or even better, join the MyFire community neighborhood and get some conversations going there. Those are great platforms for finding other people interested in the same topics and getting some discussions going and sharing information and documents and that sort of thing. Alex Victoria wanted me to remind you to mention the feedback form.
Yes, I'll mention the feedback form again. This last slide that you're viewing has the QR code and a biddle, and that is another opportunity to provide feedback for us. More data. It's just a couple really quick questions, and we'd love to hear what you have to say, and we'll be using that again to push up requirements and let policymakers and leadership know what's needed on the ground. Okay.
Well, Esther, thanks a lot. This was really interesting, and I think this is going to be something that we're going to be hearing lots about in the next few years. So thanks for jump-starting the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope that people know that a lot's happening out there, and definitely feel free to hit me up on Twitter, on the MyFire community website, via email, and if you guys know a lot of you may know me, but you can get a hold of me any way you'd like. So definitely look forward to getting some emails and some responses.
Okay, and thanks, Esther. And if you know someone that would be interested in this webinar, the recording is usually available an hour or two after the webinar. I have to get it uploaded onto YouTube, that sort of thing. But the link to that will be on the Advances in Fire Practice homepage. You can find that. Just go down through the menu items on the Wildfire Lessons Learned Center site, and you can find it, or just Google Advances in Fire Practice, and the link will be there right after the webinar announcement. All right. Well, thanks, Esther, and thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for facilitating.